Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are opening a set of files that's um, span nearly 4 decades in the Alaskan wilderness. It's a very specific cluster of documents known internally to law enforcement as the Shaw family cluster.
Yeah, and this story is lots of a typical true crime case. And I mean, it's more of a profound study in how generational trauma can intersect with these genuinely baffling recurring anomalies.
Anomalies that defied explanation for, what, 44 years?
Exactly.
We're looking at a saga that goes from 1977 all the way to 2021, and it's centered around these remote communities, Seward and Moose Pass.
Right. And it's all linked by two disappearances, a really catastrophic psychological break, and the sworn testimony of a state trooper about an anomalous intruder.
And our sources for this deep dive, they're intensely detailed. I mean, they're exceptionally rare to get all in one place.
Mhm.
We have a stack of 7 documents. There's the 1977 original missing person reports,
From the very beginning.
a National Park Service psychological evaluation from 1988, a 2015 9/11 dispatch log that, I'm not kidding, reads like a horror script.
It really does.
Then there's an official state trooper incident report that describes a physical confrontation, detailed psychiatric records from the aftermath, and a final 2021 cold case unit review that ties it all up, or tries to.
It tries to.
So our mission today, because of how complex this file is to just narrate this saga chronologically. We're going to omit nothing.
You have to. Every detail matters.
We have to use every single detail to trace the trajectory of this family's suffering and, analyze the statistical impossibility that binds these events together.
And let's just pause on that. The statistical impossibility.
Yes, let's emphasize this because it's the core hook. The 2 key disappearances, we're talking grandfather Arthur Shaw and then his granddaughter Cassie Shaw. They happened 38 years to the day from each other.
To the day.
At the exact same remote road terminus. I mean, that's not a coincidence. That's a mathematical defiance.
It absolutely is. And what's fascinating here, what you immediately grasp when you read these sources back to back, is how the institution of law enforcement just struggled to categorize these incidents across the decades.
Right.
In 1977, the initial theory was, completely dismissive. It was a classic sad case of intoxicated misadventure.
Or just walked away.
Exactly. Or voluntary abandonment due to despondency. But then you fast forward to 2015 when Trooper Bennis files his report.
The tone shifts completely.
The categorization is forced into bizarre incident and home invasion because the officer had to provide a clinical description of something profoundly inexplicable that he personally witnessed.
So we're literally tracking the shift in institutional thinking.
Yeah. Moving from minimizing human factors to finally admitting that something genuinely and terrifyingly anomalous was involved.
Okay, so let's set that initial scene. 44 years ago, late hours of October 11, 1977, we're in Eagle Talon, Alaska, near the foothills outside Seward.
The time is estimated to be late, probably between 10:30 and 11:00 p.m.
And the environment is crucial here, right?
Oh, absolutely. The location is the terminus of Midnight Road. Now, according to the original police log, Deputy Clausen noted this road just ended abruptly. It was primarily used as a discreet dumping ground.
So a place you go if you don't want to be seen.
Right. Illicit parking or hunters accessing nearby trails. But the point is, it was remote, dark, and the terrain was difficult.
And the reason they're out there that night was just the most mundane task imaginable.
Finding the family dog.
Finding the family dog. They were looking for Tony Orlando, a shepherd husky mix who was apparently a known runaway.
It's a habitual runaway, yeah. The cold was setting in, and they just needed to get him before night fully descended.
The search party itself consisted of 3 people. First, you have Arthur L. Shaw, the man who would vanish. He was 46, a war vet.
And he had a documented service-connected disability. This is critical. Chronic knee pain, which severely limited his mobility.
He also had a known recorded history of heavy alcohol consumption.
Which, became the primary lens through which this whole case was initially viewed.
Of course. And his physical constraints, they dictated the entire setup of the search that night.
Absolutely. This detail is critical to understanding the eventual vacuum, the space he disappears from. Arthur couldn't easily navigate those rough moose trails, so he stayed in the running family vehicle.
A huge, gas-guzzling 1974 Fleetwood station wagon. Engine running, headlights blazing.
His only job was to periodically honk the horn. That was it. To signal his location as his brother, Ned Shaw, and his 16-year-old daughter, Hortense, searched the nearby trails on foot.
So Ned and Hortense, they moved deeper into the woods, calling for the dog for, what, about 15 to 20 minutes?
Something like that, yeah. And then around 11:00 p.m., they realized the honking had stopped.
The silence.
Well, not total silence. There was only the distant sound of the running engine. Steady, unchanging.
So they spend another, what, 5 or 10 minutes searching before that? That creeping dread forces them back to the car.
And this is the moment where the bizarre facts just start to accumulate. When they arrived back at the clearing, the Fleetwood wagon was exactly where Arthur had parked it.
Engine still running,
Lights still on.
but the driver's side door was ajar.
Ajar. And not wide open, but just pushed out enough to break the seal. And Arthur was gone.
Inside the vehicle, they found items that, I guess, seemed to immediately suggest he just left or stumbled off.
Right, to the police anyway. Arthur's wallet and keys were not in the vehicle.
Which reinforces that initial theory that he took them intending to leave.
And a half-empty bottle of wild turkey whiskey sat, very conspicuously on the passenger floorboard.
But let's focus on the first major anomaly that was, almost immediately dismissed in the report.
The dog.
The dog. Ned and Hortense had been out there searching for Tony Orlando, the runaway Shepherd Husky mix, for over 30 minutes.
And where did they find him?
Tony Orlando was found inside the vehicle.
Exactly. Tony Orlando, the creature who instigated the whole search, had returned on his own, climbed into the back seat, and was now refusing to move.
And Ned described the dog as filthy, so it had been running around, but more disturbingly spooked.
Yeah, a dog known for running miles in the wild was suddenly too terrified to step out of a running car. Ned had to physically drag the dog out before the troopers arrived.
And even then, the dog refused to track Arthur, its own owner.
This kind of highly unusual animal behavior, a total failure of the dog's instinct, that should have been a massive red flag.
It's the first piece of evidence that just screams anomaly.
And yet, it was completely sidelined.
And then we have the first account from the key witness, 16-year-old Hortense. When Deputy Clausen asked her what happened, she hesitated, clearly terrified, and she mentioned seeing a tree stump.
But not just a tree stump.
Right, a tree stump in the deeper shadows of the woods that looked like a man.
And this is where the trauma really begins. Her uncle, Ned, he immediately performs damage control. He jumps in, says it was dark, she was scared, it was just a stump.
So he's effectively silencing her.
He's dismissing the only truly anomalous verbal observation made at the scene. And you can understand it, right? Ned wants the police to find his brother.
Yeah, he doesn't want them chasing ghost stories.
Exactly. He felt the inclusion of a ghost stump would only hurt the seriousness of the search.
So Deputy Clausen's preliminary assessment is, as you said, just a textbook example of confirmation bias.
Oh, completely. Arthur Shaw had all the known risk factors: chronic pain, known alcohol abuse, and despondency. His wife had abandoned the family 18 months prior.
So Clausen ruled out foul play and attributed the disappearance to one of 3 simple scenarios.
Intoxication leading to misadventure, or intentional voluntary abandonment due to depression. Case closed, basically.
And if we connect this to the institutional thinking, that official initial theory, it minimized every strange detail.
Every single one. The running car, the ajar door, the spooked dog, Hortense's fleeting comment. All of it was pushed aside.
They focused exclusively on Arthur's known human weaknesses.
And that decision, it essentially cemented the status quo for the next 43 years. Case 77-849B remained open but cold.
No remains, no evidence of struggle, no resolution.
Just a clean disappearance written off as a sad outcome of poor choices.
But that open wound, the unresolved loss of her father, it just festered for the only human witness.
Word tense.
We now have to jump forward 11 years to June 14th, 1988. We're looking at document 2, Hortense Shaw, now in her late 20s, using her married name, Hortense Shaw Martin.
And she's a GS5 park ranger for the National Park Service in Kenai Fjords.
The irony there is powerful, isn't it? The traumatized witness from this unresolved missing posting case has dedicated her life to finding other people.
It's classic. But this document isn't a commendation. It's an internal memorandum summarizing the findings of a mandatory fitness for duty evaluation, an FFDE.
And that's not a casual meeting. This is a severe internal action.
It's taken only when an employee's behavior poses a significant risk.
The FFDE was triggered by escalating behavioral issues and, crucially, serious protocol violations during a major search and rescue operation.
Specifically, Case AK 88219, involving a missing hiker named Jay Amsler.
The report details this pattern that had been building for months, but the crisis really came to a head during the Amsler search, which spanned several days in late May of '88.
Right. Hortense was assigned as a flanker, and her job was just to maintain the search grid line. Simple.
But she repeatedly and intentionally deviated from her assigned search pattern.
She was pursuing her intuition, she claimed, about where the missing hiker had gone. But that intuition, it came at a severe cost.
It compromised the entire search pattern. It required other team members to be diverted from the main objective just to track her down and bring her back into alignment.
And you have to understand, this isn't just insubordination. In a SAR context, when you compromise the grid, you're endangering the life of the missing person.
And the lives of the rescuers.
Exactly. Who now have to follow this erratic flanker.
The situation culminated in a deliberate and, frankly, terrifying act of insubordination on day 3, May 30th.
She failed to appear at the 6:00 p.m. check-in at base camp.
And her radio was later found, intentionally powered down. The battery pack was removed and hidden under a rock.
She had vanished. She triggered a high-priority secondary SAR operation.
Just think about the diversion of resources here.
It's massive. This action pulled 2 air assets, 2 helicopters, and an 8-person ground team off the search for the initial missing hiker.
To search for their own team member.
She was missing for approximately 96 hours, 4 full days.
When she was finally recovered on June 2nd, she was 14 miles west-southwest of her last known position. Physically, she was fine.
Healthy, yeah. She'd set up a makeshift shelter, which just shows her professional capability, but her mind was clearly somewhere else entirely.
And her explanation for this self-inflicted crisis. It revealed everything about the lasting impact of 1977.
She told the recovery team, "I wanted to see what it felt like to be truly lost, to see if I could be found."
Chilling.
Dr. Elias R. Thorne, the evaluating psychologist, provided a brilliant, albeit terrifying, summary of her condition. He diagnosed Hortense not with simple burnout or exhaustion.
No, it was something much deeper.
It was a profound and obsessive preoccupation with the phenomenon of disappearance itself. And the root cause was the complex, ambiguous, unresolved trauma from 1977.
Let's pause on that term. Ambiguous loss. This is so central to trauma psychology.
It is. It's different from definitive grief. When a loved one dies, there's closure, however painful. You mourn and you eventually move forward.
But when a loved one simply vanishes, like Arthur Shaw did, the mind struggles endlessly.
There's no body, no evidence of death, only that perpetual question, are they dead or are they still out there?
And Dr. Thorne saw Hortense's career and her breakdown as a direct attempt to master this ambiguous loss.
Through a compulsive repetitive pattern, she was pathologically attempting to reenact her father's experience.
First as a rescuer, trying to fix the original failure.
And then, ultimately, as a victim, putting herself in the position of the missing person. Her desperate desire to disappear was her subconscious trying to achieve this empathic alignment with her vanished father.
Hoping that if she was lost, she could finally understand how he was lost.
Exactly.
The consequence was severe.
Yeah.
The Park Service took this with the utmost seriousness.
Oh, absolutely. She was recommended as psychologically unfit for duty and immediately separated from all SAR and field operations.
Dr. Thorne concluded she demonstrated a clear and present danger to herself, her fellow Rangers, and the operational integrity of the service. She was just too volatile.
Too compromised by her past. And this background is so critical. We see that the unresolved loss didn't just create grief, it created a specific, destructive psychological profile.
Right, so when the events repeat 38 years later, Hortense Shaw is not just a witness.
No. She's a profoundly compromised, already psychologically vulnerable subject who is predisposed to concepts of vanishing and highly susceptible to suggestion or hallucination.
And now we make that statistically baffling leap.
The anniversary.
We arrive at Sunday, October 11, 2015, 38 years to the day after Arthur Shaw vanished.
The time of the incident is almost exactly the same, too. The first official documentation we have is Document 3, the Seward 911 dispatch audio transcript.
And at 23.58.04, so just shy of midnight, Hortense Shaw, now 54, living in a modest home at 219 Cottonwood Point Trailer Park in Moose Pass, makes the call.
The call opens with a dispatcher trying to handle what sounds like a pretty routine domestic confusion. Hortense sounds profoundly disoriented, but not, physically threatened.
And in the background, you can hear her infant granddaughter, Vera, crying in her crib.
Right. Hortense explains that she just woke up on the couch. The TV was playing the Clint Eastwood movie High Plains Drifter at a low volume.
She gets up to get a bottle, and then looking at the clock and the date, The sheer impossibility of the situation hits her.
She states to the dispatcher with this intense conviction, "It's Sunday. I don't watch her on Sundays."
She clarifies that her daughter, Cassie Vera's mother, only ever drops Vera off on Wednesdays and Fridays.
Because that's when Cassie works her shifts at the Port of Seward. Sunday is not a custody day.
And this detail is what starts to ratchet up the tension. The dispatcher, Unit 314 K. Riley, is trying to follow standard procedure.
Right. Trying to categorize this as a simple medical issue or geriatric confusion, they ask if she's confused or disoriented.
And Hortense is frantic. I'm not confused. I'm telling you, this is wrong. I'm looking at the calendar on my fridge right now. It's Sunday, October 11th. Vera should not be here.
She then tells the dispatcher she tried calling Cassie, straight to voicemail. She even called the Port of Seward security desk herself.
To just check.
And confirmed that Cassie was definitively not on the schedule for that night, which means Hortense's memory of the custody arrangement was completely accurate.
The child should not have been there.
Meaning someone had placed the child there against the established routine. Or worse, someone else had brought the child there.
But the dispatcher keeps pushing back, trying to dismiss it as a scheduling miscommunication, and says, "Ma'am, this is not a police matter if the child is safe."
And Hortense's final chilling response just encapsulates the growing terror she felt. She says, you don't understand. Something's wrong. You need to send someone now."
The call disconnected abruptly at 00.02.19. The dispatcher tried a callback.
Straight to voicemail. But, and this is to their credit, recognizing the caller's extreme psychological distress, dispatcher K. Riley correctly escalated the call.
So they didn't just write her off.
No. They notified the Alaska State Troopers requesting a welfare check on a possibly confused, disoriented elderly female with a safe but strangely delivered infant. Trooper R. Bennis was dispatched immediately.
The troopers recognized that Hortense's state itself was the emergency.
Yes, even if a custody situation seemed benign.
So now we shift entirely to the objective, professional account that anchors the anomaly, in fact, Document 4.
The Alaska State Troopers Incident Report, filed by Trooper R. Bennis. This document is the only objective, professional account of an anomalous physical entity in this entire cluster.
And it lends overwhelming credibility to the idea of a recurring entity.
Trooper Bennis arrived at 219 Cottonwood Point at 00.19. So 12 minutes into the new day, October 12, 2015. We have to slow down and just walk through his observations because he's a trained professional relying only on sensory detail.
Okay, so his first exterior observations. They're clinical, but deeply unsettling. The structure was dark. The only light was this faint, flickering blue light of the television through the front window.
He noted the environment was intensely cold, which, is normal for an Alaskan night, but he felt an unusually strong, cold draft coming specifically from the rear of the structure.
And then there's the smell.
The smell. Bennis documented a faint but distinct sweet, spoiled odor, and he compared it directly to perfume and spoiled meat.
What an odd combination.
It's so specific. This sensory detail, this specific, unpleasant yet strangely synthetic aroma, it's the only consistent forensic marker associated with the presence of this entity.
And it's just hanging in the air.
Yeah. I mean, this is not a known marker in forensic science. It's the first indicator Bennis had that this was not a standard domestic call.
The crying of the infant was clearly audible. Bennis knocked, announced himself. No response.
So, given the sub-freezing temperature, the sound of the infant, and the distressed call, he immediately entered the trailer. The front door was unlocked and slightly ajar.
To conduct the welfare check.
Right. Interior contact was made at 0.21. The cold inside the trailer was profound, way more intense than the exterior temperature suggested.
And the spoiled odor was significantly stronger.
Much stronger. And that's when he found Hortense Shaw in the central hallway. She was standing rigid, catatonic, completely non-responsive to his loud verbal commands.
Just staring.
Staring fixedly into a darkened rear bedroom, the source of the infant's cries. She was in a deep state of shock or dissociation, just checked out.
Bennis, realizing a potential perpetrator might be in the room with the baby, he correctly assessed this as high risk.
Of course. He drew his service weapon, held a low-ready position, and used his flashlight beam to advance and clear the hallway.
At 0.22, Bennis's flashlight hits the bedroom. He sees the crib against the far wall with Vera crying inside. The window on the right-hand wall was open.
And its screen appeared to be torn away from the frame.
And then he saw the unknown subject.
The intruder.
He was lying prone on the floor, positioned awkwardly halfway between the open window and the crib.
And Trooper Bennis's description, this is the centerpiece of the entire investigation. He says the subject was humanoid in shape but severely emaciated. It appeared skeletal beneath the skin.
The skin itself was dark, like a shadow, and the subject appeared completely unclothed.
He couldn't determine sex or specific features because of the light and the position, but he noted long, thin limbs. He specifically described them like a swimmer's stretched out on the floor.
And crucially, its head was turned toward the crib.
Yeah. This is the moment the trained officer's reality just shattered. He is encountering something that simply doesn't exist in his field manual.
He issues loud, standard verbal commands. "Trooper, show me your hands! Do not move!"
The intruder didn't comply. Instead, Bennis recorded that it made a low, sibilant whisper, a dry, breathy sound that was indecipherable.
But at that exact moment,
Hortense Shaw, who had been catatonic for minutes, she speaks for the first time. In a flat, dead voice, she says the words Bennis would never forget.
"Take it. It's not my kid."
Bennis shouted at Hortense to get back, but the situation escalated instantly at 0.23. The prone intruder moved in a way that Bennis noted was not a standard stand-up maneuver.
How does he describe it?
He described the movement in his official report, and this is a direct quote, as a single frenzied blur of motion, scrambling from the floor and across the room toward the open window.
A blur of motion.
And the only way he could describe the velocity and the gait was by stating the entity moved like a broken-legged spider. Impossibly fast and low to the ground, it passed through the open window and vanished into the darkness.
How long did this all take?
The entire confrontation, from the moment Bennis issued the first command until the entity was gone, lasted no more than 1.5 seconds.
So there was no time to react.
None. Given the proximity of the infant and the impossible speed, Bennis was correct not to discharge his weapon. The threat had already exited the structure.
Let's just underline the importance of this. We now have a credible officer's witness statement confirming the presence of an anomalous, inhumanly fast entity.
It completely reframes the 1977 case. It goes from human failure to possible ongoing phenomenon. Bennis's detail, the movement, the skeletal appearance, the whisper, you can't dismiss that like you could, the fear of a 16-year-old girl.
Or the delusion of a woman having a psychotic break.
Exactly.
And the forensic dead end surrounding the entity's exit is profound.
Completely. Despite the soft, damp ground outside the window, a search of the immediate perimeter yielded no footprints.
Nothing.
And investigators confirmed the window screen was torn outward, which confirms the entity fled the structure, not entered it via the window.
Which suggests it had been inside for some time before Bennis even got there.
Yes. And this brings us back to Hortense's brief moment of clarity within her breakdown.
Take it. It's not my kid.
This confirms her instantaneous, terrifying assessment. In her mind, this was not a break-in for theft or, physical harm. This was somehow an exchange.
Or a permitted transaction. A collection of a debt she feared was due.
Right.
In the immediate aftermath, at 0.24, Bennis secures Vera. She's unharmed but cold, so he wraps her in his patrol jacket. And Hortense collapses in the hallway.
Into hysterical weeping, repeating her core delusions. "It's not my kid. Where is Cassie?" And the line that tied it all together for Bennis.
You took the wrong one.
Hortense was deemed unstable and transported immediately to Seward Providence Medical Center under an M1 hold the involuntary 72-hour psychiatric hold, a very serious measure.
Vera was placed in emergency OCS protective custody.
And so attention then shifted to finding the missing mother. A Bibolo and missing person report, case 2015-019943, was filed for Cassie Shaw, age 32.
And this is the moment. This is when the 38-year statistical impossibility locks into place, definitively linking mother and grandfather.
Cassie's vehicle, a blue 2004 Subaru, was discovered abandoned early the next morning.
At the exact location of her grandfather Arthur Shaw's 1977 disappearance.
The terminus of Midnight Road, Eagle Talon, 70 miles from the trailer park where the confrontation had just occurred.
Unbelievable.
The scene processing at the trailer park, beyond the torn screen and the lingering spoiled perfume odor, it recovered only one item left behind in the bedroom.
Near the crib.
Right where the intruder was seen lying prone. An antique, porcelain-faced Clementine doll.
And the doll was generic.
Completely. Mass-produced maybe in the mid-20th century. No immediate significance or clear provenance. Just a physical object left behind by an entity that otherwise left no forensic trace.
So now we have to dive deep into Document 6, the psychiatric evaluation of Hortense Shaw from SPMC. This is dated October 14th, 2015, just days after the event.
The initial diagnosis was acute brief psychotic disorder with chronic PTSD related to the 1977 trauma. Clinically, her testimony was immediately deemed unreliable because of the severity of her break.
And yet her narrative is terrifyingly consistent and complex.
Oh, very. Hortense was fixated on the entity she called Mr. Help Me, or alternately, the Stranger. She was utterly convinced this was the same entity responsible for her father's disappearance.
And she claims she heard it whisper, "Help me," from the woods back in 1977.
She stated to the psychiatrist, and this is a direct quote, "It's been 38 years, almost to the day, it finally came back for me."
Her delusion painted a specific pathological picture of this entity. She described it as a lure that hunts by voice.
She believed it requires victims to hear the need or the plea before it can collect them. And this isn't some vague ghost story. She confabulated a highly specific, chilling backstory, probably internalized from some piece of fiction or local legend she'd read.
She detailed a 19th century Canadian train derailment.
Right. She claimed rescuers heard a single voice moaning for help that moved like an illusion through the wreckage. And crucially, the voice switched languages,
French, English, Spanish.
luring rescue parties one by one to stumble across desiccated corpses in the snow. She believed this multilingual, desperate, shape-shifting lure was the entity that had taken her father.
And the core of her psychosis, the rationale for the 2015 disappearance, it revolved entirely around this mistake exchange delusion.
She repeatedly told the staff that the entity mistook Cassie for me, and that she had been its true target since 1977.
She believed the entity had completed the exchange. It took Cassie, so it left her. It left Clementine.
Which directly informs what Venice heard her say, "Take it, it's not my kid."
Oh.
She saw the baby, Vera, and the doll, Clementine, as a trade. A highly unusual transactional aspect to a psychotic episode.
And the doll, the only piece of physical evidence left behind, it caused intense, measurable agitation.
She insisted the entity had tossed it into the crib while whispering a fragment of a song. She repeated the line. The attending psychiatrist noted it was 14 times during the initial 4-hour observation.
Clementine, in a cavern, in a canyon. Clementine.
Over and over, the medical assessment concluded that Mr. Help Me was likely a personalized external manifestation of her family's history of ambiguous loss.
And her elaborate story about the train derailment and the lure was seen as a complex confabulation to psychologically explain the unexplainable?
Right. Due to her profound psychological disorganization, the petition for 30-day involuntary commitment was granted. Hortense Shaw remains in long-term care at the Alaska Psychiatric Institute.
A permanent psychological casualty of the 1977 trauma.
Essentially, yes.
So, 6 years after Cassie vanished, we move to the final administrative verdict. Document 7, the internal review summary by Sergeant J.K. Vang of the Anchorage Cold Case Unit in March 2021.
This was an attempt to consolidate the file cluster and assess any remaining solvability factors for both Arthur Shaw in 77 and Cassie Shaw in 2015.
And Squeet Vang's conclusion.
Officially, that these two cases, separated by 38 years to the day, represent one of the most unusual and unsolvable file clusters in the region's history.
That's law enforcement officially recognizing the case has gone beyond the bounds of normal criminal investigation.
Absolutely. The statistical impossibility is the first point Vang stresses in the summary. The identical location, the Midnight Road terminus, and the exact anniversary date. It defies all rational explanation based on standard human factors.
Like a serial killer or just a series of accidents.
Right. It forced the reviewers to seek alternative explanations.
And the 2015 incident, it fundamentally altered the status of the 1977 case.
Completely. Before 2015, Arthur's file was dismissed as a probable alcohol-related fatality. The 2015 home invasion, however, provided a credible officer's witness statement of an anomalous intruder.
And that official testimony, combined with Hortense's consistent accounts of a whisper back in 77 and her detailed 2015 delusion.
It compelled the review team to formally acknowledge the possibility of a recurring unknown entity or a local legend being involved.
But even with that acknowledgement, the forensic dead end remains absolute.
Totally. Both scenes, 77 and 2015, were forensically sterile. The 2015 intruder left no trackable evidence, no prints, no DNA, no fibers.
And the Clementine doll?
untraceable, appeared to be a generic mid-20th century toy with no unique manufacturing markers or provenance, couldn't link it back to a seller or a previous owner.
So Great Vang's conclusion was just pragmatic.
Exactly. The 1977 case is cold due to time, and frankly, the initial investigative failure to pursue the bizarre details. The 2015 case is cold due to the complete lack of physical evidence for the entity and the total psychological collapse of the only primary witness.
And Cassie Shaw's digital and financial records show zero activity after October 11, 2015.
She vanished as completely as her grandfather did 38 years prior.
The final disposition reclassified both cases as cold case suspended, inactive.
And the final archival tag assigned to all materials just summarizes the impossibility of it all. Unusual circumstances, familial cluster.
So, what is truly fascinating here, when you synthesize all 7 of these documents, is how the initial trauma of 1977, that ambiguous loss of Arthur Shaw, it didn't just create psychological distress.
No, it manifested physically and violently in 2015. We have the clear psychological evidence in Hortense's decades-long fixation, her break, her specific delusion.
And that's paired directly with objective physical and behavioral evidence.
The distinct spoiled perfume odor, the torn screen, the inhumanly fast intruder described by a professional trooper, and the repeating location on the exact anniversary date.
This analysis, it strongly suggests a pattern that transcends typical crime or even shared mental illness.
It hints at a persistent phenomenon tethered to that specific geography and, frighteningly, to that specific family line.
And the initial failure in 1977 to listen to a scared 16-year-old girl to examine the impossible behavior of a terrified dog. It allowed the institution to categorize this as simple human tragedy.
And that minimizing of the bizarre led to a massive generational blind spot.
This is the critical takeaway for you, the listener. The institutional dismissal of anomalous details in the initial investigation of 1977 created the conditions for the 2015 tragedy.
By focusing only on Arthur's known human frailties, his drinking, his depression, they ignored the possibility of an external factor that would later return to claim the next generation.
Confirming that the initial assessment was fatally flawed.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean for the fate of the Shaw family? You now hold the full trajectory of this saga, from the initial police skepticism to the final administrative admission by the cold case unit 44 years later that something anomalous occurred. The pattern remains unbroken.
And the key piece of Hortense's final delusional narrative was her obsession with the idea of a mistake. She believed the entity, Mr. Help Me, had taken the wrong one.
She believed it should have taken her, but instead took Cassie, leaving the infant Vera and the Clementine doll behind.
And considering the trooper heard Hortense say, "Take it, it's not my kid," what happens when the entity that hunts by voice believes it has corrected its mistake?
And finally collected the person it wanted. The person who heard its plea 38 years ago.
Yeah.
The witness who grew up obsessed with disappearing.
We're left with the chilling prospect that the Shaw family curse may not be broken until the entity finds the person it truly sought in the darkness of 1977.